Mike. F-I-D-D-L-I-X,
Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get a city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto.
Welcome to episode 1701 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Yes, we are open. An award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. I am yours truly is throwing out the first pitch on Sunday. So get your butt to Christie Pitts. That means you, Ann, and see if I can throw a strike there. It's a 2 p.m. start. Free, free to go to a game at Christie Pitts. Everybody should be there. Best baseball in the city outside the dome. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management, Inc. And I'm running out of song because I spent too much time all excited about throwing out that first pitch. But much love to Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. And joining me today, making her Toronto Mic'd debut, is Lindsay.
Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Could you make the Toronto Maple Leafs game on Sunday at 2 o'clock? Would you be able to make your way to Christie Pitts?
It's right in my neighborhood. I would love to be there. And my gig doesn't start till 5 o'clock that day.
You know what? All the stars are aligning, and it's meant to be. I was supposed to throw out the first pitch 2 Sundays ago, but the on-air, the public address person misunderstood the directions from the owner and thought Snow was going to throw at that first pitch. And Snow was happy to do it. And I felt like Snow should do it. Snow is world famous, okay? A number 1 hit for 7 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. And who am I? So I was happy to let Snow throw at the first pitch, but they're going to make it up to me on Sunday, and I'm throwing it out Sunday.
Okay, so the big question is, have you been practicing?
You know what? No.
Uh-oh.
I know. I feel like I should just do it cold. Do a full wind-up, channel my inner Dave Steeb and see what I can do. Maybe throw a slider and see if I can get a cold strike.
Yeah, you never know.
Did you play any baseball? Or softball?
Very little baseball, but I was the first woman to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team.
Please give me more specifics, because I know you were affiliated with the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team. Please remind me how.
I was the first woman to ever play fiddle for the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey game.
I thought you were playing left wing. No,
you know what? And I thought that I was going to be our secret weapon. And I thought...
When was this, Anne?
Early 2000s. Couple of seasons.
Is this the Pat Quinn era? Is Pat Quinn the coach?
Yes, or even prior, right? Early 2000s. So I just know that I auditioned for Ken Dryden. I went and auditioned down at the ACC for Ken Dryden.
So he's there while you play your fiddle?
Yes, and I passed the audition.
Okay, so he's an Etobicoke guy, Ken Dryden.
Oh,
he wrote a book about his high school, and it's just north of here. That's a big deal. This guy, how many cups did he win with the Montreal Canadiens? This is a big deal. Ken Dryden, he's got the 1972 Summit Series wins under his belt.
Absolutely. He has done a pile of things. He's a great Canadian and a great guy. So I'm always grateful that he passed me on the audition, and it became one of the most popular gigs that I, as a mother, have ever played. My 3 sons were so delighted and so excited to come.
So please tell us what this entails to be the first woman fiddler in Toronto Maple Leafs history. Tell us what that entails.
Well, you know how when you're watching a game, they will go to the organ or to fill
Jimmy
in music.
Holmstrom.
Yes, and if there's penalty, commercial break, whatever, they'll go to the organ or they'll pump some music in. Instead, they would alternate between the organ and myself. So I'd get a countdown. Okay, we're going to a break in 30 seconds. Get ready. And then I'd just have to fire up a fiddle tune and they'd put me up on the Jumbotron. And
But what kind of tunes are like appropriate for I guess at the time it was the Air Canada Centre?
Right. Well, usually lively, fiddle-dee-dee tunes. I played
Do they
some of
want
my-
Triumph? What are they looking for?
No, they wanted, I think, Canadiana fiddly tunes. So I played some traditional tunes. I played some of my tunes that are up as well. I actually have a tune called He Shoots, He Scores that I wrote back in that era. And I actually thought it might make a good new theme song for the games for, Hockey Night in Canada. And
Sure.
my son and I did a remix of it and submitted it, but we did not win the contract.
Right, because the hockey song was scooped up by Bell Media.
That's right.
And Hockey Night in Canada lost the dun 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 dun, and they needed a new theme, and you entered that contest.
I did enter the contest.
at
And
this.
anyway, it was a nice little chapter in my career.
So how long did you do that at Maple Leaf?
Oh,
home
just
games?
for a couple of seasons.
So Jimmy Holmstrom, full disclosure, is an FOTM. That means friend of Toronto Mike. He's been down here. You're now an FOTM. I'm guessing at that time, Andy Frost is the PA announcer at Air Canada Centre. He's also an FOTM. So there's a lot of FOTMs. And, you're, like I said, you're now a friend of Toronto Mike. Dan. So
Okay.
welcome to this esteemed club that you're now in.
Yes.
Was Jimmy Holmstrom at all jealous he has to share? Because, he's used to having the spotlight during these breaks and he's playing his organ, but now there's a fiddler who gets like half of the time.
He never expressed any such sentiment. And if I was him, honestly, I think I'd be kind of cool with sharing a little bit of it.
Of course, you have a great fiddler like you. So had there been fiddlers previous that were men?
No.
You were the first fiddler, period.
But I'd just like to say that I was the first
I know, I
woman
was
to
gonna
play
say,
for the
you're the
Toronto
first
Maple-
human.
First woman to play for
Okay.
the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Amazing. Okay, so those Leafs, they're on a break as usual, and maybe with this new era beckoning, they should bring back a fiddler. Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Because Shanahan's gone, so I feel like there will be changes. Like he kind of was the head honcho, and now that he's gone, I think Keith Pelly is like truly the head honcho. And if Keith Pelly is listening, and he should be, and he's thinking, hey, new era, we're going to get things right this time. Let's bring back the fiddler and Lindsay.
All right, let's do it. I am happy to lend my bow to the cause.
Okay, so Bo, good. I have a comment from Joe Louis. I'm now debating in my head, do I read maybe before I read this nice comment that came in from Joe Louis when he heard that you were making your Toronto Mike debut. The VP dropped a line in our not-so-secret FOTM chat. I'm going to read it. He goes, someone once said, and you've probably heard this 100 times, but someone once said, if you're selling it, it's a violin. If you're buying it, it's a fiddle. Definitively and for the record, Ann Lindsay, now that you're held captive here in my basement, before I give you any gifts, any swag, what exactly is the difference between a violin and a fiddle?
Oh, there are so many answers. You could say $500 an hour. You could say a tuxedo.
Right.
You could say one burns for longer. But really, there is no physical difference whatsoever. It's just a style of playing on the instrument.
The instrument itself is the exact same.
Yes.
And it's how you play it that determines whether you're fiddling or a violinist.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have a preference?
No, I absolutely do not. And I do both. I play all sorts of different styles of music. I love all different kinds of music and have always done that. Also, I would say that fiddle is an affectionate term as well. I have heard people in the symphony call their very fine old Italian instruments their fiddles, just affectionately.
Well, yeah, like a term of endearment, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is an instrument in the room.
Mm-hmm.
What if I said to you, "Hey, what is that?" What would you say?
I would say this is my. I have several violins or several fiddles. This is my workhorse. And would you like to see her?
Bring her out. Does she have a name? And again, you have a long headphone cable, so you should be okay there. And although you're off mic, I can do play-by-play. And it's a red case.
It's a red case.
It says fragile.
Yes, fragile.
Or is that fragile? Is that Italian? Fragile?
No, that is fragile. But on the back, is
fragile. Is that French?
That's Portuguese.
Portuguese. Okay, I'm learning Portuguese.
I was just in Portugal, hiking the Camino, and they were kind enough to move my violin. I didn't carry it on my back all the way, but I did have it moved from hotel to hotel.
I can move this.
So this lovely fiddle is a Canadian fiddle.
Good. You get bonus points.
That was made 100 years ago here in Toronto by a CN railroad engineer called J.E. Dyer, D-E-Y-E-R.
I'm glad Jeremy Hopkins is on the live stream, live.torontomike.com, because we're getting some Toronto history here. Yeah, no, I know there's not enough space.
Watching the chaos.
So again, I can move things and I know it's not quite...
That's okay. We're doing very well here. So
not quite Massey Hall.
Here she is. I've had this violin since I was 16 years old. My dad bought it for me. And I was told that I needed a better instrument than the one that I had. And so I've had it since then, and she's just a lovely...
So since you were a teenager, you said? What age?
Yes.
Okay. You say 16?
Yeah. So I started, if you want a little background on...
Yeah, give it to me.
Okay. Started in the public school system in Toronto in the itinerant music program when I was 8 years old, which is a fantastic program where teachers from outside come in and then kids can choose a band or a string instrument and take it. And it's a program that's actually currently in danger.
Ooh.
In the Toronto District
I'm
School
not even
Board.
surprised to hear this, sadly.
They're threatening to cut it. So if you have a chance to speak to your trustee or to somebody at the school board or whatever, please do it and fight to keep that program. So many great Canadian musicians got their start in that program. Jim Cuddy, Jane Bennett, just to name a few.
And we'll get back to Cuddy later, everybody.
But so I started in grade 3, I guess, when I was 8 years old. Had a great teacher, Mr. Wazilenko, who just made it so much fun. I was already playing piano and singing in a choir and stuff. But when I was 13, in grade 8, I was given a violin by the school board. They chose 2 students in grade 8 every year to give a violin to. And that was the first time that I was actually at school. Jim Cuddy was in my class, actually.
Really? There's a mind blow off the top. Okay.
Yeah, I know. So,
what school is this?
Deer Park.
Okay.
Young and
St. Clair. Shout out these schools. Okay.
Yeah. So, Young and St. Clair. There was an assembly, and I was called up to the front, and they just handed me this violin. I'd been having fun with music. I knew I was pretty good, but I had no idea that I was special, and that, but it was that. That was the first indicator to me that there was something going on there.
You were gifted.
I don't know about that.
In the musical sense, at least. Of course, you must have been. And we know it because here you are decades later. And we're going to play some of your new music, and people will listen and say, she's gifted.
Yeah.
So firstly, that's amazing they gave out like violins, because now I think they want their recorders back. It's like, here's a recorder, make sure we get it back.
Right,
okay?
Right. Well, there were only 2 that were given to grade 8 students. And so at that point, my parents decided, I guess, also that it might be good for me to have some private lessons, because clearly somebody thought I would.
Wait, before you continue, I do want the full story. Absolutely. But so you knew Jim Cuddy at this time, so you're like...
Or you could say Jim Cuddy knew me at that time. Yes.
Good point. But at this point, you guys are just classmates. There's yet to be a kernel of evidence that Jim Cuddy has a great voice or interested in singing.
Oh, well, no, we played in the orchestra together. We actually had our first gig at Massey Hall when we were 12 or 13 years old.
Okay, more mind blows. Okay.
I was the concert mistress of the orchestra and the first violinist, and he was originally the timpani player, but he got demoted for bad behavior, so he got stuck playing bass drum.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, not nearly as much to do on the bass drum.
Okay, pick up your story now. We just want a little... Jim Cuddy, also an FOTM, by the way.
Okay, great. Do you play hockey as well?
I actually had to stop playing hockey because I got diagnosed with a blood clotting disorder, and my doctor told me stop playing hockey.
Oh,
I know, because so I'll never, I know it sounds worse than it is. I just take like a pill twice a day.
I know, but
and I don't.
I'm just saying. Oh, at the having to give up the hockey.
Well, I had to give up. I think I gave up almost all contact sport. I did. I gave up all contact sports. So the only contact sport remaining is when I'm biking and my body hits the ground. That's my last contact sport.
Well, that's
I try to like make that happen as infrequently as possible.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. In fact, driving out here, I was like, oh, this is one of my favorite bike rides coming out along the lake shore.
You're on the waterfront trail.
Yes, love it.
Do you bike?
I do. Yes. I don't mountain bike, but I road bike and gravel bike and
No, I mean, who mountain bikes? Okay, so you're on the Martin Goodman Trail. You'll do a nice ride on the Martin Goodman Trail.
Sure. And head out to Port Credit or yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll see you on the trails. I'll be looking out for Ann Lindsay on the trails for sure. But pick up your story there. So we're walking through here. Because I'm curious, the fact that you have this interest at such a young age. Is there music in the house? Is there a parent who's a musician? I'm just wondering if there's something in your bloodlines there.
Not in my immediate family. I was kind of the black sheep. Everybody was either in healthcare, surgeon, nurse, researcher, veterinarian, scientists. I was the only one in the arts that went into the arts. But I think both of my grandmothers, both maternal and paternal, played piano. One of them was a school teacher, probably used music in the classroom. So I guess that could be where it came from. There wasn't a lot of music in the house other than we all had the opportunity to play instruments, and we had some amazing teachers.
And it is amazing that you had this opportunity where you're gifted this violin, and then next thing you know, you're in lessons and you're still playing it today. Like, what a gift!
It really is.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
And what's the name of this program that's in jeopardy? Because I have to give an assignment to the listenership. But what's the name of this program?
Okay, well, I call it the Itinerant Music Program, but I'm not sure if that's what it's still called. It used to be called that, the Itinerant Music Program, and I think that covered both the band and string programs, the ORF program, so the recorder program you were talking about.
Right.
There's also a ukulele program in a lot of schools. Melanie Doan was doing that for a while.
That's cool. That's a big name.
Melanie Doan has a fantastic ukulele school going now, outside of public schools as well as inside.
I think Mary Jo Eustace is still very good friends with Melanie Doan and was telling me about this recently.
Yep.
So I'm going to give an assignment to J-Ho on the live stream. J-Ho, find out if that's still the name of this program, and then I'll bark my orders shortly. So J-Ho, this is an assignment. Put it in the chat. What is the name of this program that we're referencing? And it's the TDSB, is that?
Yes.
Okay, that the TDSB has, and I'll be checking back in the live stream. And I'm going to read you the question, since we brought up Jim Cuddy and how far back you go with Jim, which is a mind blow. I'm going to make the comment that was sent to me by Joe Louis. So, Joe Louis, when I said Ann Lindsay was dropping by, Joe Louis wrote, pretty sure that's the same fiddler who played with Cuddy at his show in Richmond Hill. Total missed opportunity to smash a fiddle at the end of her solo. Have you ever had, you love your fiddles, you would never do this, but maybe you get a cheap, I don't know what you would do in this situation because you don't want to mess a nice fiddle, but you ever had the urge to smash it after one of your kick-ass solos?
No, not at that point. Have I ever had the urge to smash a fiddle?
Punk style, like, how, I don't know, Nirvana would do it or Sex Pistols or something?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. One thing people comment on a lot is that I go through a lot of bow hair. So when, literally I'm shredding. When I'm shredding.
Oh, I've seen the video. Yeah. Yeah.
So the bow hair goes, but that's not a malicious act. It's not a purposeful act. It just happens. So honestly, my answer would be no. I've never really felt the urge to smash the fiddle, unless at a much younger age I was incredibly frustrated practicing, but hadn't learned the trick to practicing.
So this shredding you described, so I was watching some YouTube videos of you playing with, so forget Jim Cuddy, we'll get back to him in a minute, but Blue Rodeo proper, like you're there playing with Blue Rodeo, and I can see the shredding as you call it, and might not be intentional, but it looks damn cool. Like it's a cool effect. Like you're up there kicking ass and it's shredding.
It's not intentional, and it varies depending on the climate conditions. So sometimes if it's very dry, the bow will go a bit more. It will tend to break a bit more. Sometimes if it's very humid, also it will break a bit more. So I never quite know. But the wonderful bow maker, David Tamblin, here in Toronto, who repairs my bows and does maintenance on them, he always asks me where I'm going to be playing when he puts new hair on it. And so I can tell him. And, you know, if I'm going up to the Arctic or something, he would string it differently than if I was going to Boston in the pouring rain.
Wow. Okay, you keep calling it hair. Pardon my ignorance, but is this actually hair?
It is tail hair from a horse. Yes, and it's not synthetic. Some bows are strung with synthetic hair, but mine are strung with real hair from a horse's tail.
Okay, I'm learning a lot today, Anne. But I want to give the listenership an idea of what it sounds like when you're shredding with Blue Rodeo. So I'll start playing this, and then we can break it down, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about when you play with Jim Cuddy and with Blue Rodeo. And I think that's pretty rad that Joe Louis saw you and thought you were kicking ass there. So let me just bring this up in the bottom here. So just a little taste of Anne Lindsay with Blue Rodeo. And it's just a fan video. Like, it's just a fan in this taking video. And I know this is audio, but when you watch this video, you know, Greg Keeler's right there beside you, looking in admiration. You're shredding. You're fiddling. You're shredding.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, both Jim and Greg are so generous because when I play with Blue Rodeo, or when I played with Blue Rodeo, because I'm not currently playing with them, I used to play with them, I was taking what used to be Greg's solo in that tune when he still played electric guitar.
Right.
But he was so gracious to just, you know, let me take it over. And the same thing with Jim when I'm working with him. You know, he opens up and makes space in all of his beautiful music for everybody in the band to have room to solo. And I just think it's such a generous gift and, you know, so grateful for that.
And are you friendly with Kendall Carson?
Yes, I know Kendall.
Because I've seen Kendall with the fiddle on a Blue Rodeo show as well. Like, so let's get some specifics. So you're no longer playing with Blue Rodeo, but you're still playing with Jim. Like, how long have you played with is it the Jim Cuddy Band?
Yeah, the Jim Cuddy Band was formed, I think, in 97 or 98. And I came on board with Jim then. I had already been working with Blue Rodeo before that. First of all, just as a classical player, around the time of the Lost Together, the recording with Lost Together on it, they were doing some shows just with a string quartet, and so I was playing in that quartet. Then they were interested in having more string arrangements, I wrote a bunch of string arrangements and recorded them with them, and then I toured with them as well. But I think once Jim started his solo project, I played less with Blue Rodeo because I think he wanted to, and this may not be correct, but I'm guessing that he probably wanted to define his solo project as something a bit different than Blue Rodeo, and by having the fiddle in it.
And also, he's like, I've known this woman my entire life. Like he's got dibs. Right? Because Annie, you're playing together, I don't know, when you're kids.
Well, it's true. We had known each other for a long time. We didn't see each other for years. We went to different high schools, had different social groups, and then it wasn't until our kids were actually playing hockey together, because our kids are the same age. And I would meet him at the hockey rink sometimes on the weekends, and I'd say, I'm not just a classical violinist. I play fiddle stuff as well, and I think I'd sound really good.
Sure. No, you mean that's evidence. That's audio evidence right now. How good a fiddle can sound in a Blue Rodeo jam.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so less Blue Rodeo for you now, because it sounds like Jim Cuddy's hogging you. He wants you all to himself, which is fine. But I'm going to actually play something in a minute, which is you and Jim, just to get a vibe of how you two sound together. And it's a nice piece I found on YouTube I want to share with everybody. Really quickly here, before I ask you about some other artists that you've played with, I'm going to make sure I've given you sufficient swag since you made the trek here today. So we already talked about Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. This book, Anne, is the history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball.
I am very excited for this book.
Well, it's all yours. You got to know. You got to know the history of this team here.
Well, it's pretty legendary, actually, isn't it? I just know a little bit, but just and the fact that they are right at Christie Pitts,
amazing, right?
Is fantastic. So, and my sons are going to love this as well.
It's kind of, to me, like, I've been to a couple of games already this year, and I'll be there on Sunday. But the idea that if Mother Nature cooperates, and they didn't, Mother Nature did not cooperate last weekend, for example, and they had a flooded field and they couldn't play. But when Mother Nature cooperates, like the fact that you can waltz to this great park, in the middle of Toronto at Christie and Bloor, and you can just sit on the hill and you can drink a beer now, not worry about it. It's completely legal. You can have a beer. You can grab a dog.
I could bring my Great Lakes Brewery
You're
beers.
You're good at this, Anne. Do you want to co-host the show with me?
Well, I think I am right now, aren't I?
All right, I'll give you the schedule after. So you are bringing home with you those cans of fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery. Absolutely.
Well, I might just bring one to the game. Then you
know what? Bring the Sunnyside Session IPA. It's like the perfect summertime outside beer. You drink that. You watch the baseball game. Watch me throw out my first pitch. So, but in addition, I'm not even done, Anne. In addition to the beer from Great Lakes, we love you, Great Lakes. I have a Palma pasta lasagna in my freezer upstairs. Delicious lasagna.
Well, I was curious. I saw the box and I thought...
the box is empty.
And I thought, what the heck is he doing? Leaving pasta out on the console.
You don't give me much credit, Anne. Okay, so the lasagna is in the freezer. That is the, to symbolize what you're going to get when you leave here. I do want to remind everybody, including you, Anne, heck, you could bring your fiddle and play for us, but we have an event on June 26th. This is a Thursday. It's called TMLX 19, the 19th Toronto Mic'd Listener Experience. It is going to be at Great Lakes Brewery in South Etobicoke, which is 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard down the street from the Costco. Again, 6 to 9 p.m. June 26th. Anyone who could hear my voice is invited, and Palma Pasta will feed us.
Wow, that's a great double header.
Look at you.
I would say.
You should come with your fiddle, because I know just the other day I mentioned Rob Bruce is the reason your headphone volume was a little, this is before I press record, but Rob says he's going to bring a keyboard. I wonder if we could get a jam session going.
What's Rob, the date again?
June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m.
Oh.
Consider it. I can remind you.
I might be available. You never know. And also, the other thing I love from Great Lakes, they have it's a de-alcoholized beer or a hop.
Do you want one? I have one in the fridge. It's called Hop Pop.
It's a Hop Pop, right?
Yeah,
I love those. They're really good.
Very good. You could drink a Hop Pop while you watch and you get a Hop Pop. Lots of peas to pop on that one. June 26th. So TMLX 19, everyone's invited. You've got your beer, you got your lasagna, you got your book.
do.
Ridley Funeral Home sent over a measuring tape for you, Anne.
Did they know that I like to sew? This is perfect.
You know, after you, so the next visitor in the basement is right after we say goodbye. The owner of Ridley Funeral Home, Brad Jones, is going to visit and record an episode of his fine podcast, Life's Undertaking. I'm going to ask him, Brad, did you know Anne Lindsay likes to sew?
Well, Anne Lindsay also likes playing at funerals. That might sound a little bit odd, but I do.
Doesn't sound odd because you're probably in that mode. You're not a fiddler now. You're a violinist, right?
Yes and no. Sometimes, I mean, I do play a lot of Celtic airs that are very beautiful, slow tunes. And often that's what people would like to hear at a funeral too. So I just find it's a nice way to share my gift with people, and it often resonates very deeply. So
can I pepper you with some big name musicians? We've already talked about a big name musician in Jim Cuddy, and we talked about Blue Rodeo, one of Canada's greatest bands. By the way, I have to give credit to Robert Lawson, who... That's the reason we had that cold open. It's an obscure track from the Guess Who. Fiddlin, that's Fiddlin', I think it's called.
Oh.
And I opened with it because Robert Lawson turned me on to it when he heard a Fiddler was going to be in the basement. So I want to just say, and Robert, maybe I'll see you on Sunday. I know you get your butt to Christie Pitts for many a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game. So thank you, Robert Lawson, the official fact checker of the Toronto Mike podcast. So I'm going to hit you with some names in addition to Blue Rodeo, and just tell me if you ever performed with them. Did you have any interactions of a musical variety with them?
So is this like you say the name and I say the first thing that comes to my mind?
It's kind of like that, except, I kind of pick names I know you'll have something to say about,
Okay.
so I've kind of stacked the deck in your favor, so you cannot lose, even if you play. But I'm going to ask you about, in a weird way, so my firstborn's name is James, and when I named him James, and my wife agreed with the name. Obviously, I didn't do it independently, but a lot of it had to do with how much I love the song "Sweet Baby James" by James Taylor. Like, it was and it's just yesterday I had a gentleman. He's a founding member of the Watchmen, which is one of Canada's great bands, and we were talking about the lead singer of the Watchmen, Danny Graves, who once sang a cappella at a Toronto Mike listener experience at Great Lakes Brewery, and he sang Sweet Baby James from James Taylor. Have you, Anne Lindsay, ever played with James Taylor?
Yes, I have.
Whoa.
Songwriters Hall of Fame, again, early 2000s. I'm going to guess 2005, 2006. I got a call from Lou Pamonti, who was the musical director.
Who's an FOTM? Lou Pamonti.
Oh.
Well, shout out to James B.
Yeah. So Lou called me up and said, I'm MDing for the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and James is coming. Joni Mitchell was being inaugurated, and he was asked to sing a song of hers, and he was going to do Woodstock, and he wanted to try it with fiddle. Wanted to try it. So would I like to come and rehearse? Yeah. No guarantee that I'd actually get to perform. Well, I mean, what do you think I would say? Of course. Yes.
James, you've got a friend in Anne. Okay.
So went down, spent the afternoon rehearsing. It was a blast. He's a great musician and a lovely man. We must have played the tune about 17 times. Like he just tried a different way each time. Say, let's leave the drums out for, a verse and a half, or no, let's start the drums at the top this time. Let's, and of course, I was very lucky. He liked what I was doing on the violin, and so I ended up doing the broadcast with them as well.
That's amazing. Quick question, and before we get back to James Taylor, which is your fiddle your fiddle's an antique? Is that right? J-Ho was asking if it's an antique.
Oh, thanks for asking. I guess you would call it that. She's actually celebrating her 100th birthday this year.
Happy birthday!
Which is pretty exciting.
And does she have a name? I can't remember. I asked you.
She doesn't. She doesn't have a name.
Okay. You want to name her? I don't know. What's a good name for a fiddle?
Well, it's interesting.
Fiona?
I have only named one of my violins,
okay.
And it's not one that I play a lot. So, I mean, this one is definitely my best friend. Like, I mean, we've gone everywhere together. We've done everything.
What would you do if I smashed it right now? Would you beat me up?
I would ask you, why are you doing that?
I would never do that.
Please
I wish
stop.
no harm on your beautiful violin. But I do have an answer to that question I assigned Jay-Ho with, which is, what is the name of it? And he says it's still called the TDSB itinerant. How do I say that word?
Itinerant.
Okay, you know what? I don't know if I know that word. Itinerant. Okay, Okay, it's called the TDSB Itinerant Music Program. It's for grades 1 to 8. So
Yeah, and
it is in existence, but it is absolutely, as you told us, it is being threatened with funding cuts, and everybody listening should make some noise with their local school trustee and keep this going.
Yeah, the Toronto Musicians Association was circulating a petition. I should call them and see if I can get a link to that petition, and then I'll send it to you, and maybe you can put it up on your website.
Because we're going to be deprived of a future Anne Lindsay.
Well, that's true. Think of all the kids that would never get the opportunity to learn an instrument otherwise. So, I mean, it's just fantastic to keep that program going.
And it's fantastic that you got to play with James Taylor. That's a big one.
It was wonderful. And I got to meet Joni Mitchell.
Yeah,
I had a
that's
lovely
amazing.
conversation with her. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm going to play. I promised myself I'd play it because I want the listenership to hear before we get to your new stuff. I'm going to play a song written by Joni Mitchell in like a moment. You could probably guess what I'm going to play. But we will hear a Joni Mitchell song, but it won't be performed by Joni. It'll be Jim Cuddy and Anne Lindsay, and it's coming very, very soon. Ready for another big name?
Sure.
Led Zeppelin.
Woohoo. Okay, so actually a slight correction. It was Page and Plant who I played with.
Do you know this is in your official bio?
Well, I've been told.
Are you misleading
that
us, Anne?
I've been told by a publicist that it's okay to sort of stretch the truth a little bit. So, Anyway, Page and Plant were on tour. They were recreating the whole Kashmir album. And so they were picking up a small string section wherever they went. And they had all these incredible Turkish and Arabic musicians with them. So it was a fantastic show. I did it here in Toronto and also in Buffalo. The thing I remember the most about the Toronto show, which was at what was then the Sky Dome, was that it was one of the loudest shows, not in terms of stage volume, because they had plexiglass around us, but in terms of the crowd. Oh. The crowd response was
It echoes around in there.
so
Maybe it bounces
loud.
around. And the dome was closed, I take it.
Yes.
Yeah. What band? Who was just here? Jelly Roll and Post Malone were just at the dome, and they opened the dome during the show. Like this is part of the deal is the dome opens, and then they get excited the dome is opening. I just read about that. Okay, here's an FOTM. That's cool, by the way, Page and Plant. And I think I would do what you're doing. I'm thinking I once had performing live at a TMLX event. It was Ron Hawkins and Lawrence Nichols, and I think for a long time I was promoting it as Lowest of the Low because it's the main singer-songwriter from Lowest of the Low plus another member. But I think at some point they asked me if maybe I should not promote it as Lowest of the Low because it's not technically Lowest of the Low. It's two members of Lowest of the Low. But I think in my bio I would say Lowest of the Low play TMLX.
So get a pass?
Yeah, I think I would do that too. So you're off the hook on that one. Okay,
thanks.
so, but here's an FOTM band because Andy Mays has been in the basement. But have you ever performed with the Sky Diggers?
Oh, yeah. Love those guys. So I've recorded with them as well. Cannot remember the name of the album that I'm on, but I've done a couple of things with them, recorded, and then a bunch of live shows too.
Okay, they're great live.
And here's a little bit of trivia. Andy's partner in life, non-musical partner,
Right.
is Andrea Nan. And Andrea Nan has a dance company. She's a wonderful dancer. It's called Dream Walker Dance Company. They have a production opening in Toronto next week called Firehorse and Shadow, I believe. And she came to my recent CD release in March, and she danced to one of my solo violin pieces with me.
See, everything's connected.
And it was a fantastic experience. We've wanted to collaborate for years, and we finally got the opportunity to. So there's a little sidebar to Sky Diggers.
Okay, and you teased your new album, which we're going to talk about in a moment. It's called Solo Works 2. Mm-hmm. Because Solo Works was so good, it needed a sequel.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you for suggesting that as the explanation. It was slightly more practical in that I thought that I had finished writing solo pieces for violin, more or less. And then COVID hit. And I was at home alone, just with my best friend here.
Who's unnamed for some
my
reason? Fiona?
Anonymous best friend. And so we started writing pieces for solo violin. And I realized, okay, this looks like a project. And the Ontario Arts Council thought so too, and provided some funding for composition and for recording. So
Sweet. Okay, so we will dive deep into solo works too, and no fiddle jams on this thing. This is purely violin stuff.
Oh, I wouldn't say so.
Well, that's why you're here, because you can set me straight. You're like the official fact checker of the violin fiddle. Okay, so we will get back to solo works too. I'm just going to drop a couple more names on you because I'm having a good time. Here's a big name I'm going to drop on you. Roger Daltrey.
Right. Okay. That was a show up at Canada's Wonderland, where I was part of a small string section that was accompanying him. He was doing a solo show with his band. And, he'd gone out and broken out from The Who at that point. Again, a very loud show. I don't know how much you know, but Roger's got some hearing loss.
I know they're wrapping it up. Like The Who is wrapping it up.
Yeah.
But they also wrapped it up in 83, I think it was. So.
Yeah. So that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, you need to hear to perform, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. And we know your hearing's good because the previous guest had the headphone volume much louder than you needed it. And I feel like this was a very good sign. All right, so instead of picking on another artist here, I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you about a production, and then I'm going to ask you about a location, and then we're going to play this Joni Mitchell song, and then we're going to talk about solo works too. Okay, so in that order, because I'm the boss around here, Anne. Okay, I'm going to ask you about The Lord of the Rings, the stage production.
Yes, down at Princess of Wales Theatre, 2006, I believe it was. And I was asked to be the folk fiddler for the production, which meant that I would wear a number of different hats. I would play some of the fiddle music on my good best friend here. I would also play second violin in the string quartet, which was the more classical part of the score. And I used a different violin for that, which is a very old German violin that I have, a 1740 violin that I use for...
Well, that's really old.
It's really old. Older
Is that
than
your
us.
oldest instrument?
Yes, it is the oldest instrument
That
in my
makes this
house.
100-year-old here seem like a puppy.
A little, yeah, just a little pup.
100. I could see 100 from here. Come on. Okay. Now we're talking here.
So I was playing two different kinds of violin, but then I also was asked if I would learn how to play two other fiddles. Because the composers of the score, the wonderful composers, A.R. Rahman, who's a Bollywood composer.
Yeah, big name.
And the Uber folk group from Finland called Vartana, they had chosen to identify the elves with the sound of the Swedish nyckelharpa, which I didn't bring, sorry.
Oh, listen, you can't bring all your instruments to the basement. We don't have enough room.
It's true. It would be a little bit of a tight fit.
I'm honored you brought the 100-year-old. You trusted that 100-year-old Fiona, because I've decided I'm naming this instrument. You've trusted 100-year-old Fiona in the basement. I'm honored by that.
I'm not so sure she's happy with that name, Mike. Sorry. But
did she tell you that?
Well,
like, do you talk to your
I
instrument?
can sort of feel her.
Well, ask her what her name is if she talks.
No, I think she likes just to sing.
Okay. You're the boss.
The voice of the hobbits was the Finnish Yohiko, which is a very different kind of fiddle. It's basically just a hollowed out box with a hole in the fingerboard that you put your fingers through, and you play this 3 strings with the backs and fronts of your fingers, and the strings are made from ice fishing line. Only in Finland.
Okay, sort of like how when you're drinking the champagne, but it didn't come from that part of France. You're not actually drinking champagne. Like
you mean if I'm playing Yohiko here in Toronto? No, I'm still playing Yohiko.
You can play it anywhere you want, but those strings have to come from Finland. Am I hearing that right?
Well, I guess. Though,
Okay,
I mean, you can get
okay.
ice fishing line here, too.
Okay, I
right?
thought maybe it had to come, like it had to be
I mean,
Finnish.
I
ice
think what I
fishing.
meant by saying only in
Okay,
Finland was
okay.
that it was a particularly indigenous to Finland creation that they would use ice fishing.
I'm catching up to you
line
now. I'm catching up to you now.
for the strings on the fiddle. Anyway, it was a great experience and a humbling experience to learn 2 new instruments while I was already well established, well into my career. And I had a great teacher. The fiddle player from Vartana, Lassi Logren, was my teacher and came over here a number of times. And the Mervishes bought 3 nickel harpas and, how many yohikos? So many yohikos, because I had to play a soprano yohiko or a treble yohiko and also an alto yohiko. So I was having to tune up 1, 2, 3. I had to tune so many instruments down there in the orchestra pit every show because I had to have a spare instrument in case I broke a string or something.
Yeah.
And then I had a set of instruments at home as well for practicing. And then we were training a sub who could fill in for me if needed as well. So there was another set of instruments for them.
Did you ever need the sub?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What
Got to that
happened? Like
point.
what happened?
Just I needed a break.
Oh.
I think my dad was celebrating his 85th birthday or something. We
Okay.
were having like a family reunion in the summer, so I got to have a week off. And
I'd be afraid I would take the week off and the sub would be so amazing I'd never get back to number 1 status. Like it's like when you're a starting goaltender, you don't want to take a injury break or whatever because you might lose the job to the backup if the backup is lights out.
I don't know about that. And first of all, I think you just have to
Well, you're
have...
Ann Lindsay. You don't have to worry about these things.
Well, I guess I've learned not to worry about those things, maybe, that those things aren't important.
And you needed a break and it was your dad's birthday.
Yeah.
Yohiko, by the way, also the name of the new left winger the Maple Leafs will sign during this offseason to help us maybe win our first Stanley Cup since 1967.
Really?
Yohiko. No, I'm just making a bad joke. Okay. Okay. One last thing.
You had me.
I know.
You had me reeled in
Once
on
in
the
a
ice
while.
fishing line.
I can't be the only gullible one around here. Did you know the word gullible does not appear in the dictionary? Did you know that, Anne? Isn't that mind-blowing?
What?
My 9-year-old
Okay.
my 9-year-old fell for that
Okay.
recently, so I felt like I did
Well,
my job.
I'm
there.
kind of there right with the 9-year-old. You can just reel me right in.
All right, last, that's amazing, by the way, The Lord of the Rings. That's a big stage production there. But did you play the Arctic?
Did I play in the Arctic?
In the Arctic?
Yes, I've been to the Arctic several times.
Okay.
I've gone up twice to Rankin Inlet with several other musicians. Ian Tamblin, from a wonderful singer-songwriter, a Canadian icon from the Gatineau area, led songwriting workshops for Inuit youth in Rankin Inlet. And I went up with Ian and Fred Guignon and Rebecca Campbell several times. I've also worked on an Adventure Canada. They're a tour company that does guided tours through the Arctic. I've been a musical host with them, and I've gone up with Jim. We went up to Cambridge Bay and performed up there. Everybody should go to the Arctic.
Does it shred more in the Arctic or less? What's going on with the shredding?
Good question. I believe it does because it's so dry. That would be my recollection of times up there.
So I teased I'd play something with you and Jim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it, but I might bring it down halfway through to shout out some sponsors and then kind of bring it up for the big finish here. But of course, you mentioned Joni Mitchell. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about you playing with Jim Cuddy. So I pulled a little taste of how that sounds. And then after the break, we'll discuss Solo Works 2.
Hi, everybody. Jim Cuddy. I have the great pleasure of playing today with Ann Lindsay. We're doing this in benefit of food banks. And this is a time of need, so thank you for watching. This is a song about longing to be back in Canada for the Christmas season as one remembers it. It's called River. It's coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees. They're putting up reindeer singing songs of joy and peace. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. Well, it don't snow here, it stays pretty green. Gonna make a lot of money, quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long, teach my feet fly high. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry. She tried hard to hold me. She put me at ease. She loved me so naughty.
This is beautiful, Anne. Like, I don't even want to fade. I had a plan, and then I abandoned my plan because I'm like, the way that, well, Jim has such a wonderful voice. And his voice with your violin here on this song feels like it's December. I'm feeling great right here. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a very sweet performance. It's always a treat and an honor to play with Jim. We did this at Yorkminster Park Baptist Church in the middle of the pandemic. So it was being webcast out in support of food banks, as a fundraiser for food banks. And I have an affiliation with Yorkminster Park because I do a service there once a month and play Celtic music, along with Charlene Wallace on Celtic harp and Eric Robertson on piano. And it's called Iona, after the island in Scotland.
Iona, that's okay. That's what Iona is, because I know on June 8th, which is not long from now, it's a Sunday, I know at 6:45 p.m., you're at Yorkminster Park Baptist Church, right?
You know what? I think that is actually a typo on my website. Because
it is on your website.
This Sunday.
Okay, that is a typo. Anne, come on, what's going on over here? Okay, so it's the.
I just play the violin.
So you just play the violin. So it's after the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game, like you said earlier. That's the event that's at Yorkminster. That's the Iona-inspired liturgy, music and meditations.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful service, and we play Celtic music for about 15 minutes before the service and then during the service. And
should we let you wrap up here first?
What a beautiful place we're playing in. Ladies and gentlemen, Ann Lindsay and Jim Cuddy. And thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for donating to Churches on the Hill, which will distribute to local food banks. And the need is high, and your generosity is much appreciated. Thank you.
It was in Bob Cajun where we saw Ann Lindsay and the Jim Cuddy trio at the Bob Cajun Curling Club.
Oh, this is a few days ago.
You know what? We got to talk about your website because it's all out of order here. Okay, so truly it's Huntsville. This is a real one, everybody. Not a mistake this time. The Huntsville Festival of the Arts in Huntsville, Ontario. You will be there July 23rd and 24th, 2025 with the Jim Cuddy Band. Please tell me that's not a typo.
That is not a typo.
Okay,
and
Huntsville.
Before that, June 7th, I will be at Taw's Winery, which is our annual solstice gig at Taw's down in Vineland. That's with the Jim Cuddy Band too. Okay, we got to make sure we get this right. So everybody, there's one more I'm going to shout out here, and then I'm going to shout out a couple of sponsors and get to this new album. But Kitchener,
you're playing the Wayback Festival at Victoria Park. This sounds like, you know what? I would drive to this event. Kitchener, Wayback Festival, you and the Jim Cuddy Band, Saturday, July 25th.
You know what?
If that's a typo, Ann, I'm shutting this down.
You know what?
I'm getting angry over here.
Well, I just don't want to spread any false
Well, it's
info.
already on your official website.
Well, but you know what? I think it got bumped. I think it got bumped for a rodeo gig.
Okay.
You know, one of the members of the Jim Cuddy Band does have a full-time day
But
gig
he's
with
got me
rodeo.
all excited about making the trek to Kitchener.
I know. But,
Jim, it's not all about the dollar bills. Come on, let's go.
okay, let's see here. Yeah, the 25th is gone.
It's gone. Okay, so we got to go to Huntsville for the 23rd and 24th. That's still there.
Is still there,
Okay,
yes.
Huntsville Festival of the Arts. You can see Ann Lindsay with the Jim Cuddy Band. Okay, and everybody, if you want to know the dates, again, it may be a bit out of date on Ann's site, but if you go to jimcuddy.com/tour, I'm sure Jim's people are keeping that thing up to date there. Okay.
And Anne will make sure that her website gets cleaned up.
Okay, I can't believe it. I can't believe I missed the Bob Cajun gig too, but that was May 22nd. So why did I even bother to paste this one down? Okay, so first of all, that was beautiful again. I loved listening to you and Jim and that webcast you did during the pandemic. That was a beautiful, beautiful Joni Mitchell cover there of The River. I would just ask you quickly, Anne, if you've ever played Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yes.
How many times have you had to guess? I won't hold you to the answer here, but several times, a couple of times? How many times?
Yes, many times. I've played there, in the concert hall. I've played there in the arena. Where is it there? Is it there in Saskatoon? There's one place where we play out in this sort of industrial park thing. But also the Regina Folk Festival was one of my favorite folk festivals to play. And sadly, it's no more.
Oh, what happened to it?
Well, like a number of folk festivals post-COVID, they just don't have the funding or the volunteer base to make a go of it anymore. But Regina, it was such a great folk festival. It was in the park in the center of town, and during the day it was free. Families would come, and then there were ticketed concerts at night.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm sorry that hopefully somebody gets their sense about them and finds some funding to bring that back.
Yeah.
I will shout out the wonderful podcast, Yes, We Are Open, from Monaris that Al Grego hosts. Al visited Regina and he talked to Jim Bayton, the founder and owner of Tumbler's Pizza. Jim shared his journey from making pizza boxes at 14 to building a pizza empire that sells Regina-style pizza. And then this is, again, much like I copied and pasted your upcoming tour from your site, and we found out some of it was either a typo or it was canceled, and that's fine. That happens. But I copied this from Spotify to describe this recent episode of Yes, We Are Open, which I urge everybody to listen to hear from Jim and learn about Tumbler's Pizza in Regina. But when I copied this, it said that this Regina-style pizza was now in over 140 locations across Saskatchewan. And it turns out my guest yesterday, when I read that, he grew up in Winnipeg. That's where all the Watchmen guys are from, Winnipeg. And he called BS on that. He says Saskatchewan's not big enough for 140 locations. Now, we're not calling anyone a liar here. I think maybe it must be true. It must be true that there's 140 locations of Tumbler's Pizza in Regina. Do you think that's possible?
140 locations.
It's a copy and paste
Regina?
from Spotify. Like, unless Al Grego made a mistake, which would be his first mistake ever.
Is it possible that zero maybe wasn't supposed to be there?
I need a ruling, so I'm going to make a call to Al Grego later today and triple check this number here. It doesn't actually matter, except it's in the description, but the song remains the same, as Led Zeppelin would say. Hear the story behind the unique name, the secret formula for their incredible sauce, and challenges faced along the way. And maybe that's something we need to look into. So Robert Lawson, you're the official fact checker of the Toronto Mike podcast. 140 locations for Tumbler's Pizza. We are skeptical. But we want to believe. We're like Fox Mulder in the X-Files. We want to believe here. Okay. And last but not least, recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go if you have old cables, old electronics, old devices. You don't throw it in the garbage because those chemicals end up in our landfill. You go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and then find out where you can drop it off to be properly recycled. RecycleMyElectronics.ca.
Wow. Do they clean hard drives as well?
Yeah, there's a. I don't think I think they recommend you drill a hole in your hard drive. Like I was looking into this exact thing. So you have old laptops and maybe, because even though you wipe it, you don't want to. But they tell you to drill a hole in the hard drive if you're concerned about privacy issues and stuff. And then maybe they have some other tips there. But this is a great way to get rid of your old electronics. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. And I know I said last but not least, but I also lied to you, because last but not least is much love to Building Toronto's Skyline and Building Success, 2 great podcast series from Nick Iones, who has stepped up to help fuel the real talk. Thank you, Nick Iones, for joining the team of good people that help keep this going. I urge people to listen to Brad Bradford and Nick Iones discuss affordable housing in the most recent episode of Building Toronto's Skyline. Okay, Anne, please tell me about SoloWorks 2. And I have questions about St. Anne's, and I'm going to let you pick it up from there, but I would love to hear about the St. Anne's Church and all of this.
Sure. Well, I already mentioned that the CD was written and recorded during the global pandemic. And when we went looking for a location to record in, I went to York Minster Park, first of all, to that church that you just heard the beautiful acoustics in when Jim and I were playing there. But the subway runs right underneath York Minster Park.
Okay.
So that got ruled out. My engineer, Tim Vesley, actually suggested that I go.
I'm a big Real Statics fan.
Oh, well, of course. Who isn't?
I know. Good question.
So Tim suggested we go to St. Anne's and walked in to this space. And I don't know whether you were familiar with the church or not, but it had a Byzantine dome. It looked like it should have been in Istanbul or something like that. You walked inside, and the dome inside was decorated, was painted all with murals by the Group of Seven.
Well, that explains why you needed a rheostatics guy to be the the engineer on this, because they're all about the Group of Seven over there. But I do know one fun fact I did learn is that this church was built in 1907, so it's also over 100 years old.
Yes, built in 1907 with a minister at that time who was a bit of a rebel and very connected to the whole artistic and philosophical movement that was happening in Toronto at that time. So you had the Group of Seven guys that were just starting out. They were actually just finishing school. You had Francis Loring, Florence Weil, both sculptors who happened to be friends of my parents. So when I was a little girl growing up, they would come over for Christmas dinner and stuff and sit around.
Mind blow.
Drinking scotch and smoking cigars. And I was like, what the heck? From a very sheltered,
Sure.
sort of lower Forest Hill upbringing. And beautiful, beautiful interior. But the thing that struck me the most was as soon as I walked into the space and I whistled, the incredible reverb in the room. And it just was such an amazing acoustic space. So it was a no-brainer that we would record there.
And this is, sorry, you recorded during the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay.
Recorded during the pandemic. And then as it did for many musicians, once we were free to start performing again, we got very busy. And Jim also had a CD that he wanted to release. So we toured his whole CD for a year and a bit. And then it was time for me to release my CD. But in the meantime, tragically, a year ago, last June 2024, St. Anne's Anglican Church burned to the ground.
It's terrible.
Horrible.
June 9th, 2024.
Yeah, we're coming up to the anniversary. So I had to rule that out as a possible CD release space or album release space. But I went to talk to them there anyway because I wanted to do it as a fundraiser for them as well. And I walked into the parish hall. And the parish hall is very bare bones, completely contrasting to the church. It's like a high school gymnasium from 1965 or something. But again, I pulled out my violin and played, and the acoustics were actually quite lovely. There was a stage that I could stand on, and there was a bit of a a concave ceiling over the stage that we projected an image of the church in the interior. Here's the CD, by the way. And inside it, there's a picture of the ceiling of the church, and we projected that onto the ceiling above the stage that I was going to do the album release on. So we did the release there. It was a great success. Lots of people came out. But it is both sad that space is no longer with us, but I also feel very fortunate that we have this acoustic memory of St. Anne's Anglican. And I don't know for sure, but I think that this may be the only solo instrument recording. A lot of choirs recorded in that church.
It's another mind blow, but you know what this does, Anne? It also makes you the primary suspect. Because
now that's
I need to know
a new angle.
who benefits the most from the tragic fire destroying the historic church, St. Anne's. You do.
Nobody else has taken that angle.
You have.
In
Solo works too.
all the publicity I've done.
That's how my brain works.
Okay. It's a very clever angle. Not the case. But
I need to. I'll need an alibi, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. So where were you on June 9th, 2024?
I was in Toronto.
That's not a very good alibi.
And I woke up and heard the story and thought about getting on my bike and riding down there, and I just couldn't do it. I just didn't want to do it. Yeah.
No, that's terrible. But beautiful music, again, as a memento, if you will. I don't know. I don't even know. So this is the on-air production chat we're going to have, which is, are you going to play something?
Well,
it's up to you. I don't want to put pressure on you.
I think it would be nice if you could play something that was recorded at St. Anne's.
Well, I'm going to play something for sure. Okay. So some of these names are not my native tongue. And some say, what is your native tongue, Mike? Who knows? Votamane is what I have here.
Votamane.
Okay, see.
That's Latin.
Votamane.
And Credo.
Credo. And of course I have the Airport Jam, YY... XYZ. It's YYZ. This is a cover of a Rush song, YYZ. I don't want to tease Rush, Mike, and James, but XYZ. If I had those three loaded up, which one would you like me to play of those three?
Well, you know what gives a lovely idea of... Oh, they both do, actually. Do you want short or long?
Well, I'm wanting to play the one you want to hear the most. I can always bring it down and hear you tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. If you play Credo, you'll hear right off the bat the sound of the church. Okay. And I think that's really interesting, how we experience architecture, not just by sight, but by other senses.
And I love it. You had me at hello. Here's Credo. Beautiful, Anne. Beautiful.
Thank you.
It's about time we got some culture in this podcast. It can't be all Sloan and Lowest of the Low and the Watchmen. That was beautiful. That was recorded at Toronto St. Anne's Anglican Church. No, Anne was not responsible for it burning down, but hopefully we can get things repaired. And Tim Vesley, so he's the one capturing this
Yes.
beautiful audio.
Yeah. I've worked with Tim a bunch. He actually was the engineer for my third CD as well. I've got 5 CDs out now of my music. And I love working with Tim. He's a great engineer. He's a great musician and a good friend.
Love to hear it here. And I think when I wrote the description, which hasn't been published yet because we're about to wrap up here, but I wrote that you're an award-winning musician. Maybe shout out some of these awards. I have a long list, but what are the awards you're most proud of? You've won many an award.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think that first violin that I was awarded was pretty pivotal.
Yeah, we
did. Like I said, I don't think I had any
Do you have that
idea.
violin still?
I do.
Okay.
And in fact, when I was 16, I drilled a hole in it and put a pickup in it so I could play in the first rock band that I played with. And
that could have been your direction. Like you could have ended up in, I'm thinking of like a band like Hey Rosetta or something like that. And the lead singer of Hey Rosetta is going to do a thing with Matt Galloway on The Current. And I was kind of reading about that earlier in Newfoundland.
right.
But
yeah. Tim.
Yeah,
Tim Baker.
Thank you.
Great.
You saved me because you could see my brain trying to come up with the he's a wonderful singer. And I loved Hey Rosetta. But you could have been in Broken Social Scene.
But I don't need to be because
You're
I'm
in the Jim Cuddy band.
And I'm in the Ann Lindsay band.
You're in the Ann Lindsay band. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Which award?
So other awards. So I did win.
I have it here.
Do I
So,
remember?
can you talk about the Canadian Folk Music Awards?
Producer of the.
You won a few awards. You won Producer of the Year in
Yes.
2007. You won Solo Instrumentalist of the Year, and you were nominated for Instrumental Solo Artist of the Year.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was 2011 for that nomination.
Yeah, so I really think that all of those awards and also any of the funding that I've received from various funding bodies really mean a lot to me. It's kind of getting a little pat on the back that what you're doing is being respected by your peers, and that means a lot.
Hey, lest we forget, you won Violinist of the Year at the National Jazz Awards.
Right.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
These are all big deals. And how was this on your list of accomplishments and your scholarships and your awards that you are now an FOTM, you have made your Toronto Mike debut? How did this go for you?
I loved coming in today to talk to you about all this.
No regrets? A shout out to Tom Cochran, no regrets? No.
Oh,
That's for
did you want
Yeah,
me?
that's for
You want me to say hi? Hi,
No.
Tom.
No,
Love you, Tom.
No,
I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. We were traveling together and playing together.
So I'm going to record at a golf tournament called the Joe Carter Classic. Okay?
Right.
And I'm going to record with people who are there to do this charity golf tournament. Last time I did this, which was last June, Tom was there because he loves the golf, and I had a
Yes.
great chat with him on Toronto Mic'd. And I'm now wondering, as I said, I was asking you if you had no regrets coming on Toronto Mic'd, was my terrible way to get there, mentioning Tom Cochran. But now I'm wondering, will Tom Cochran be back at the Joe Carter Classic it's only in a couple of weeks.
Well, I
Will
didn't
see
ask
again?
him that. I'm so sorry I didn't ask him that.
Should have been your first question.
You know,
Anne.
just going back to that question, violin or fiddle,
Yeah.
track 5 on this, Carolina Parakeet, if you ever want to.
Well, I
That is
happen to
really
have this
fiddly.
album, so number
Carolina
5.
Parakeet.
Okay. But most of this album is violin.
I would say it's leaning, this is probably leaning, of all my recordings, this leans more to the classical or new acoustic sort of music. But
What-
Carolina Parakeet is definitely a fiddle
Okay.
tune.
Well, I'm going to check that out. And I think it's worth the drive to Huntsville to see you with the Jim Cuddy Band, July 23rd and 24th at the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. And much luck with the Solo Works 2 release. If you were going to send somebody to grab a copy, where would you send them?
Oh, go to Bandcamp. I love Bandcamp, and all my music is up there. I'm also on the usual streaming culprits, but
But
Bandcamp.
look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to annlindsay.bandcamp.com, and you can download SoloWorks too that way. That's our preferred way, and people should do that. And thanks for dropping by today. It was nice to meet Fiona. It's not sticking, is it? I feel like if I say it enough times, it'll stick. You know what? I'm trying to think of who it was. Fred Penner. So Fred Penner was in here with an instrument,
Love Fred.
and during this closing song, he was like playing it.
Playing along.
No pressure, okay, Anne? 'Cause I'm going to read a little extra here. But it was lovely to meet you. I love this very much. And that brings us to the end of our 1,701st show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. Anne's got her fresh craft beer. Palma Pasta. Don't leave without your lasagna. It's in my freezer. Moneris. Subscribe to Season 8. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Yes, We Are Open is a fine podcast. Toronto Maple Leafs Baseball. I'm throwing out the first pitch Sunday. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Building Toronto Skyline. And Ridley Funeral Home. I'm recording with Brad Jones in mere minutes. Take it away, Ann! You don't know what's coming. That's the Friendly Giant theme. So here's the Pizza Nova jingle. Can you do this one? It's an Alfie Zappacosta composition.
Right.
Let's see if you can name these tunes. Hold on, a couple more. These are the Easter eggs. This is The Spoons, Romantic Traffic.
Wow, you've done a real mosh up.
Well, Rob Proust did it. I just pressed play. Okay, this is Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, having an average weekend from the Kids in the Hall.
Ta-da.